Shekhar Kapur is here, everyone. In this case, of course, really there's no introduction because it's Mr. Shekhar Kapur in front of you.
Hello. Yeah. Anybody want to go to the loo? You should. Go ahead.
And we hit the motorway as
yeah,
yet.
yeah. No, I know what it's like. Yeah. Somebody's trying to talk and say, "Oh my God, how do I get out of here without being noticed?" And I will notice. So.
It's always awesome to hear you speak.
Thank you.
Simple question. I go through your blog often enough. Your notes to your daughters, to your daughter, your letters, and candid confessions of how you would want to live your life, and then how maybe she just gets back saying something unique, and you're totally surprised. It's blogging. It's an expression, and the format of blogging changing from an expression, a diary, a personal diary, to something that you need to be heard of, like Twitter is now. Just express your thoughts about that.
There are many reasons I started blogging, and I was associated with Nirav. He's the one that actually created my blog for me. Doesn't pay me that much attention. He has many clients now, so please, Nirav, do something about that. Yeah. I started with two reasons. Over the years in media, I realized that the media about me at that time, it was a selfish reason, was not telling the truth. And I didn't like being edited. And I suddenly realized I've been watching the way internet grew. I've been lecturing about the future a lot. And then I decided to blog because I thought that if I want my point of view out there as I want it, I'd better publish myself. So I realized at that time that self-publication, self-publishing was going to be the future. So about 5 or 6 years ago we started, yeah, when we first talked about self-publishing, Nirav. And so about 5 or 6 years ago I published my first blog. And why did I start with my daughter? Because she was born when I was in my 50s. And there are questions I needed to ask my father, and he passed away before I could ask them. Because he was too old, and I thought, I wish he had blogged. He was a doctor, he was very well known. He was a pediatrician, so he spent his life saving lives. I wanted to ask him if he's afraid of dying, but he had seen so many people die. I wish he had blogged about that. I wish he had talked about sacrificing your life for other people. I wish he'd blogged. He was thrown out and he started life all over again, almost killed in partition. I wish he had blogged about that. So I said that if I blog, every now and again, if my daughter, when she's 25, saying, I wonder what my father used to think about that. I was hoping that she'd get something there. So that's one of the reasons I started. And yeah, that's what pushed me. Over the years, I've been very angry at media. I think that the media distorts. I think that the media is fundamentally fine, especially in India now, but all over the world. They have a point of view. Nothing that is corporatized could ever actually have a completely independent point of view. It's really tough. It's really tough because everything is so expensive, and when you have shareholders, you're fundamentally sitting at every quarter, sitting in a boardroom trying to justify your existence. And the only way they look at your existence is not from a point of view of what you said, but how much money you're making for the shareholders. So I've always realized that media is not going to be independent, cannot always project an independent point of view, and the only way that we can have an independent point of view is personal, where it costs zero, and it just is how courageous you are and how fearless you are. So these are the reasons I started. Now I stay because I get attention. It's addictive. It's addictive when, and now I don't know if you've noticed, I don't speak to media anymore. Why would I? Why would I not? I've now said, I think social media is the new format. It's a new form, it's the new world. And I want them to come to my world. Why would I go to their world? Why would I go to the world of news and things? I don't go anymore. And it was really strange. I got a really interesting idea a few days ago. Interesting example of that. I tweeted something that got over 3,500 tweets. I didn't retweets, and I had no idea why. 100, 200, 300, 400, 500 I've seen. 3,500 retweets, I thought something must be happening. So then some friend of mine called me and said, "You're on the news." I said, "Why am I on the news?" And I went to the news, and they were just talking about my tweet. And it was to the president. Now, I can tweet to the prime minister, I can tweet to the president of the United States. It was about when the president came out and said that to be on the streets, democracy on the streets was anarchy, and I took exception to that. I tweeted that got controversial, then Arvind Kejriwal retweeted that. And it became an issue for 4 hours. Mainstream media was discussing one tweet and the consequences of that one tweet and one retweet. And when I said anarchy, actually anarchy is what happened in 1984 when the state stood by the rampage against Sikhs. And then suddenly that became the question. Then Arnab called me and said, "Would you come on a show?" I said, "No." And then Arnab took it up with Rahul Gandhi. And you know what that led to? That led to riots. So there must have been many forces, but one tweet gave rise to it, unlocked the key. It had the key and unlocked pent-up questions and anger that led to that. So I said yes. What I've been trying to prove for many years now is now coming true. Social media drives mainstream media, not the other way around. And come and talk to us the people who have enough diverse points of view to cancel out fundamentalism from each other, so that we can all chat in a reasonable form. I believe political debate on Twitter and social media is far more relevant and far more democratic than the kind of debate we listen to in Parliament. And that's the power of social media, and that's why I will stay with it, and that's why I will promote it. Make sense?
Yeah, so I'm a big fan of yours because you're a great filmmaker, and since being a writer and a blogger, you capture my imagination. You kind of inspire me a lot. My question to you is, what do you think about citizen journalism? Since I've seen you tweeting about Aam Aadmi Party a lot, supporting the cause, what they're doing, things like that. And I'm starting a newspaper, basically a newspaper site. I have no clue, no idea. I have some rough ideas about citizen journalism that I want to start and make citizens speak, do the journalism themselves and come up with facts and figures rather than, media being biased and things like that. Because online media is not dependent on advertisers like Reliance or whatever it is. So it's much not biased. You can figure out, if something is biased, you can figure out online. So I have a newspaper site that I want, and if you think it's a good idea, would you also support it, encourage it?
So I've never actually supported Aam Aadmi Party. I've supported activism. Okay. So the person I really supported was Anna. I came out, actually went out to television to support him because everybody in Parliament was lying. Everybody in Parliament said, if you're against Parliament, you're against democracy, forgetting that the Indian Constitution actually starts with we the people, not with we the parliamentarians. And Parliament is a tool of democracy. It's the servant of the democracy. And if your servant is stealing, you better check him out, and recreate the system under which the servants can be not cheating. And 67 years has been going on. So I'm a tool of activism. I think that people protesting on the streets against Parliament, if you take that right away, Parliament will become even more feudal. So that's what I was supporting. To citizen journalism, well, there are two questions. Do you have a choice? No. You can't. Social media is like a tsunami right now all over the world. You cannot stop it. Every country's tried. The only way to stop stop it. The only thing that you can do is make a geographical divide. So you can firewall every connection between your nation and another. But China tried it, and still it gets through. But what China couldn't do and cannot do is stop the rise of citizen journalism, whether it's through Weibo is what they have, what's it? Baidu. They can't stop that. How many people are you going to put in jail? How many people are you going to threaten? And the wider it goes, the greater it is. And so one thing is that there's no point trying to stop it. It will not stop. The argument that I've heard from every editor, every newspaper owner, and of course, is that, well, what about the editorial? This is mob, it's just the power of the mob. So my argument is, what else are elections but the power of the mob? So how can you say at one point that the electorate, that anybody above 18 can actually understand and evaluate the vote that they give, and say, but they cannot understand and cannot evaluate the opinion that they have, that they're expressing? The two don't add up. So either have the courage to say, well, actually our readers don't have the power to evaluate and understand what they're saying. We want them to understand and evaluate and believe what we are saying. Now, who decides that you're the one? Who gave you? You become the one because it's somewhere you got the opportunity to do that. Now your readers have the opportunity to do that. So allow them to do it. The great thing is about social media is it's like, and I'll probably use this simile in a different context, that it's like the breeze hitting the waves in the sea. There's a crest and the trough. But for every crest, there's a trough. And the trough is pulling the crest down, wanting to be the crest itself. And as the crest gets pulled down, the trough comes up and becomes the crest, and then it gets pulled down. Now, ultimately, this goes on, and while you might look at it as chaos, what actually is happening is the ocean. And so social media in that way is like the ocean. The crests and the troughs are canceling out each other, every opinion, and if there's one great idea, becomes a tsunami.
Okay.
But that tsunami is not formed by an individual idea unless that idea lives within the subconsciousness of the ocean. If it lives in the subconsciousness of the ocean will give you a tsunami. And so therefore, now coming to your third point, should I start a newspaper? Of course you should. Everybody should, right? Your problems won't start when you start the newspaper. It'll be exciting, it'll be wonderful. Your problems will be, oh my God, you'll be trying to get all your friends to give you free articles. It's when a big corporate house said, now you've grown big enough and now we'll buy you out. That's when your problems start. Then is the time you'll have to make that decision.
So just to follow up, small question.
Yeah.
Usually these media people, what they do is they have bias because they see that what people prefer. They run a news story because there's a good headline, and then they can catch attention of people, and people can read, and they can have TRPs and things like that.
I understand what you're saying.
Yeah. So they don't focus on the priorities of what is important. They focus on the preferences of it.
Yeah.
So if I am more focusing on the priority issues of a big mass, it is having a big mass appeal. Would you encourage and support it?
Yeah. Let me answer that question. 20 years ago, when I was making cinema in India a lot, people were, there was saying, yeah, Hindi, everybody understands, right? So, yeah. So, yeah, picture बहुत interesting hai, but masses के लिए नहीं hai. And then I would say, अच्छा, तो आप masses हैं? So, नहीं, sir. I never came across somebody who would say, हम masses हैं. Everybody would say, ये हमारे लिए ठीक है, intellectuals के लिए ठीक है, सब हमारे लिए, लेकिन सब masses के लिए नहीं है. I've never come across somebody who would put themselves in the category of mass, and that doesn't matter between a small town or anywhere. So the fact that you are the mass is there is no mass. There's nothing. We create opinions. If you take somebody, if you go to London, right, and you say, okay, I want you to I'll take you to the best Indian food. The Indian food is so spicy that ultimately when you give them real home-cooked dal chawal or rajma chawal or curry something, they'll say, hey, this is not Indian food, yeah, there's no spice. Because you've created the taste, right? Now you cannot blame your readers. If there was a time in Bengal when everybody would watch films like Satyajitre, but the moment a Bollywood film came in, and if it tried to be kind of artistic, they'll say, hey, what kind of film is this? Because Bollywood had trained them to believe that their films have songs and dances and overdramatic and melodramatic and all. So you create your own taste. Your taste is not the audience taste. That's a big misnomer. You have, for your own sensibility, put that sensibility on the viewer and made them accept your sensibility like a bad cook. You get a better cook, you'll get a better sensibility from the people that have your cuisine. So it's actually the other way around.
Yeah, so we had 2 sessions earlier, and both of them were trying to debate on commercial books, as in bookstores, and commercial music is dying. As a practitioner in that industry, I just wanted to get your views.
As commercial, you mean, what do you, can you just define in one line what you mean by commercial?
Well, they said books don't make money, and therefore bookstores are dying.
Okay.
Music is not making money, so music is dying.
All right. Doing something with Amish Tripathi, which I cannot tell you about. He just sold 3 million books on his Shiva trilogy. Who says books are not doing well? He wants, I think he makes 3 or 4 crores a year from his books. Who says books are not doing well?
They're saying it's about, he's among the 1% or 10% of the group that makes money out of writing books.
Who said then the others should write better books? See, but the fact is that books have that kind of market. He and I were talking about of a plan on how to sell 30 million copies of his next book. How does that work? Music is not doing well. Of course music is not doing well. Music is not doing well because all the music companies insisted for so many years to sell you 12 songs when you only liked one. And convince them as you might, you say, just sell us one song, they would say no. Because it was cheaper for them to create 12 songs with the same artist. Why? So, what happens is, larger corporations don't like to see things change. Because if they see things change, if they see the system change, everybody that has come to a position of power has climbed that system and firewalled that system so that other people can't come in. I was a chartered accountant for a long time, still am, and I was allowed to make money signing a balance sheet because I had passed a certain degree. 9 out of 10 people around me knew more about accounting and balance sheets, but they were not allowed to do it. I could charge money to just put my signature to a balance sheet, so I'd firewalled myself. The medical profession does that. And everybody does that when you get to the top. So it's very clear that the music companies and the publishing business and the film business is very responsible for what happened because technology beats them. 95% of all, 95% in this world of all viewership, consumption of the audio-visual actually is on YouTube or like sites like Vimeo. It's not in the theaters. How long before we'll wake up to say, actually, there's 800 million cell phones in India. Why can't I just get 50 paisa from each one of them to watch my film? Just somebody who knows mathematics, tell me how much is that? 800 million with 50 paisa is how many rupees? Just quickly. Huh? 400 million. Which Hindi film has ever made 400 million or likely to make 400 million? But we're not thinking like that. Why would Karan Johar, why would Aditya Chopra think like that? Because the moment he thinks like that, somebody's going to beat the structures that they've created. Because they've created monopolistic structures in the theatrical world. How would they do it? It's difficult. You've got to think forward. You've got to understand technology. And you understand that you cannot hold back technology. You don't own it. Sony owned it for a long time. They're going to go bankrupt because they tried to own it and restrict it. Now it's cheap. All right? So self-publishing is the new world. Well, when somebody asks me, why are you doing so many tweets? I said, I'm not doing so many tweets. What are you doing? I said, I'm creating content. I'm a publisher. If 650,000 people are coming to my Twitter account, I'm a bigger publisher than most people I know. Most magazines I know. I'm a publisher. I'm self-publishing at zero cost. I do it when I'm in a traffic jam. Tell me how many publishers can run their business sitting in a traffic jam? That's the new world.
Yeah. So my question is, you spoke about democracy and how social media is actually creating democracy, and it is wrong to say it is anarchy. But social media also creates mass hysteria kind of situation. It is possible to manipulate. It is possible for people to be swayed by communal passions or whatever passions. How do we control that? And do you think it is still democracy is the way, even if there is a that means persecution of minority? Yeah.
When Gandhiji started the Quit India movement, and it caught on and said, burn everything that is foreign and burn, and Indians and patriotic Indians all over India were burning Lancashire cotton and goods. Would you agree with me that what he was doing was provoking mass hysteria in order for a purpose that we believe was right? Right? It was still Quit India movement when people were sitting there in Satyagraha getting beaten by the cops and not moving. People that were doing hunger strikes and dying for the cause is a kind of a mass hysteria. We didn't call it mass hysteria. Why do we call this mass hysteria? I know that the Arab Spring has not worked out. I know that there are problems. But for almost, 3 decades, they were trying to get rid of a dictator. They couldn't. Social media in 11 days got rid of that dictator. In 11 days, it created Tahrir Square. Now, yes, no revolution is ever successful. Every revolution goes through problems. But what would at that time the people that threw out the dictators in Egypt and in other parts of the world through social media, they would not call it mass hysteria. They would call it a revolution. So anarchy and mass hysteria to one person is a revolution to the other. And that has always happened. What has happened is that the pace is increasing fundamentally. How long? Imagine Mahatma Gandhi with a smartphone. Think about it. Seriously think about it. Think about Mahatma Gandhi giving his message out to 800 million people at the same time. Given the same Gandhiji, given the same impact, how long would it have taken him to throw the British out? Just imagine. He didn't have those tools. What if he had the tools then? It's just increased. Okay, so let me try and explain this. What social media has done, okay, so it's one of the theories that I've developed that go into a book. But what social media has done, it has sucked inertia out of the system. Right? Now, let me come back, and I said I would come back to that. Let me come back to this thing of a wave. All right? If I take a camera and I shoot the sea, now just imagine me shooting the sea, and I'll have, on a normal day, the waves, and not, slightly windy day, you'll have the waves going up and down like this, the crest and the trough and the crest and the trough, right? Now, if I shoot the same thing at 100,000 frames a second, a camera runs at 24 frames a second. I shoot it now at 100,000 frames a second. What you will see is it'll go like this, even slower. I now shoot it at 1,000,000 frames a second. The seas will look static. When they look static, here's what you'll find. At the top, the crest, which is the top of the pyramid, the structure will stay longer. And the trough will stay longer. What have I done? Imagine that as structure. What I've actually done is inserted inertia into the system of waves. Right? Now, I shoot it at 4 frames a second. It'll go like this, and you say, well, what is that? That's just chaos. That's anarchy. That's anarchy for the people that were sitting on the top of the crest, doing their very best to stop the trough from throwing them down. Right? So, for people that were sitting on the top of the crest was anarchy. So, all social media is doing right now is sucking inertia out of the system, which is why in 7 years you get a company that is valued at $100 billion. If you'd asked 20 years ago that oh, could we get a company, Facebook, that was valued at $7 billion, people say you're mad. It would take at least 50, 60 years, maybe longer, for a company to be valued at $100 billion. What's happening? Facebook? No. What's happening is inertia is being sucked out of the system. I could tell you in 5 years, we'll get a company formed in year 1, and in year 3, it'll be worth $100 billion. And in year 15, it'll be worth 0. What's happening? What we call chaos is nothing but time compressed. Everything that is happening, time and change is compressing. That's all that's happening. Social media is accelerating the pace of change. And for those of us that don't want to do that, we are living in the wrong world. We better adapt to that. Yes?
Hello, sir. I come from the college. You are alumni. I'm from Stephens. And there is a story which I want to, I'm going to tread on a different path here. I'm going to ask a question. When I mentioned my call, when I'm first here, and when I mentioned that I studied in Stephens, I actually started getting lifting up in more ways. So I really felt, in a way, disappointed that if I had not mentioned my institution, what would have happened to my leadership. So I wanted to ask whether a certain kind of profession or certain kind of institutional backing affect your readership or affects kind of writing. I used to get comments that, see, there's her Stephanian elitism or anything which, if I had not mentioned my institution, what would have happened? So I wanted to ask if an institutional backing has something to do with writing or reading.
Okay. If you left India and went and say you joined Stanford University, all right? The first thing that will happen is all the Indians in Stanford will come around you and say, hey, we have an India society. We have an Indian music society. What's the difference? Again, that might take you a month. Social media would have allowed you to take it make one day. You just put in Stanford group, join that group, India group. The next day you'll be invited to dinner. Can you cook? Can you do this? So it's the same thing. See, there's another thing. Human beings have never stopped being tribal. What you're seeing is a sense of tribalism. And it's not that you belong to one tribe. You belong to different tribes at different periods and depending on your life situation at that time. How many of you live in crowded areas? I live in Juhu, it's very crowded. How many of you live in very crowded areas? Now, notice one thing next time. When you're driving in that crowded area, you're the driver's tribe, you're the car tribe. You hate people when you honk and they don't get out of your way. Now that very evening, try walking. And there will people be honking behind you, and you're suddenly the walker's tribe. And you hate those people. You could smash their cars for honking at you, which is what you were doing in the morning. Right? We're tribal. We react tribal in tribal ways. And what social media is allowing us to do is consistently change our tribes faster than a day. You could change your tribe in a second. But that doesn't, the fundamentals of life and the fundamentals of that which drives us doesn't change. We continue to be tribal. You know, one day, whole of media will be Aam Aadmi Party tribe, and the next day there'll be the Congress tribe, depending on which way the TRPs move. Right? We are tribal. We are born that way because every time human beings, since we have started to form communities and societies, a large community, a nation, or a large community is nothing but smaller tribes getting together. You just get tribal all the time. Yeah?
Sir, your views on ghost tweeting?
Sorry?
Ghost tweeting.
Yeah.
Some of the celebrities using it like, I got a sprain, I am going to bathroom, calling each other names, and some message for them.
Well, no message to them because there's a girl called Poonam Pandey who has at least 3 times the number of followers I have. So what can I say? You can look upon Twitter as an influencer. I don't. Priyanka Chopra has 5 million followers. They follow her because she's a sexy young girl. And as we know in Twitter, let's look at magazines, right? Could you sell a magazine without a picture of a handsome man or a beautiful girl in lesser clothes and lesser clothes today? You can't, all right? Look at Bombay Times. What does Bombay Times do? Right? That's what it does. Over the years, look at Bombay Times when it was first formed, look at Bombay Times now. It's the nature of who we are, how we react, and what we do. There is no morality to it. Everybody wants to be an influencer. My view is that you should be lasting influencer. So 1 year down the line, the tweet saying, I'm just in the shower and it's really hot and it's wonderful, I'm using this brilliant soap, won't last. But if your tweet or your blog had a timeless content value, then it will last. So what do you want to do? What I want to do is I want all of my tweets, I never tweet about myself. I may tweet, I went there and I'm here and wonderful people and wonderful questions. But Shashi Tharoor is tweeting all the time about where he is and what he's doing. He has a political imperative. You can analyze his tweet, and any psychoanalyst would look at his tweets and say, he's trying to convince everybody that he's a damn good politician, especially the Congress party, right? So it depends what you want. I'm trying to convince everybody I'm a great storyteller. I'm trying to convince everybody of different things. I'm trying to influence people from what I do, you know? So to me, all social media is about content creation. Content that 5 years down the line, 6 years, 10 years, 20 years, 100 years down the line, you can go back to and say, I find that interesting. That's what I want to do. Is it a slower process? So I create an audience for that by just what you were saying, by training them that this is, if you want this is where you come. That's my tribe. That doesn't mean that the very people that are watching me are not watching Poonam Pandey taking her clothes off. They're the same people, right? Attention span is everybody has such a wide and vivid attention span and imagination. You can keep delving and run to that. Doesn't mean that they're separate people, they're the same people. Yeah?
Last question.
Yeah, hi. Sir, it's taken you about 30 to 35 years and a few very successful Bollywood and Hollywood films to become Shekhar Kapur, who's an influencer, who has the ability to get retweeted 3,000 times and have 650,000 followers. So what's your advice on self-branding to someone who's just started out in the digital world and someone who's perhaps not connected with mainstream Bollywood to gain that kind of traction?
Yeah, there are 2 ways to look at self-branding. You're either doing it because you want to sell something, or you're doing it because you want to express something. I do it because I want to express something, and yes, of course, I'm concerned about my brand. I will not do anything that will now take away from what I talk about or what I speak about. People have different ideas. There's some very clever modern technological tools that you can use for branding that people use, and I know lots of my friends who use companies, and they pay a lot of these companies. They're professional branding companies that use social media to brand you, and they will do your tweets for you. They'll just go under your name. It's very easy to tell who's doing that. You just look at the way they do it, right? Oh, okay, he's being sent this and he's just had dinner, or she's just had dinner and now she's tweeting it all because it's all lying in her draft box which the company has sent her or him, and tuk. there soon will be tools that will tell you who's using, there'll be analytical tools that will tell you how good your companies are by telling you who's using them and how effective they are. There'll be tools who'll say to you whether you're doing it, whether they're using companies to do it, and whether they're going out and buying Twitter followers. There's tools already if you really care to find out. Me? Yeah, I feel I should tweet more often sometimes, but I can't tweet unless it comes from the heart. The fundamental reason I went to social media is to express who I am. For me, it's a moment of self-discovery. Can I be honest and frank about who I am? Well, how honest and frankly do I know myself? So let me put it out. Let me share my own sense of self-discovery out to the world. That's me. And I think I've been successful because of that. Not because I had a fundamental agenda on it, no. But you can have a fundamental agenda. You can be successful. Then you will be successful as long as you are successful in something else. You will not be successful because you're successful in what you are saying. So somebody like Priyanka will go on be successful as long as she's a star and as long as she's a big singing star. What happens after that? Will your brand continue? Maybe you don't want it to continue. I want it to. I want it as a great archive of memory of me and my. So on my grave they'll say, hey, lay the guy. Yeah, and you can watch his 3.5 million tweets. Go find out.